Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today's guest is Frank Holmes. Frank is Chief Executive, Chief Investment Officer at U.S. Global Investors, a leading mutual fund and asset management firm. Frank is sought-after keynote speaker at international investment conferences and a regular guest in business media. You see a lot of Frank's work on his Frank Talk CEO blog, which is one of the most widely read in finance. Frank is the chairman of Hive Blockchain Technology, that is hiveblockchain.com, and I am very happy to have him on the X22 Report Spotlight. Frank, welcome to the Spotlight.
Well, it's great to be with you today.
Hey, thanks for being here. And let's start off with the economy, and I wanted to get your take on, what the economy is doing and how it is, because we see right now that the Fed, well, they're tightening right now. They're looking to raise rates. They're looking to shrink their balance sheet. But we also see warning signs like the retail apocalypse. We have like Bank of America and other financial pundits out there saying that the yield curve is flattening and they're worried about it inverting, and that might lead to a recession. And I wanted to get your take on what you think is happening out in the economy and where the economy is headed.
Well, right now, I look at global PMI, and PMI is Purchasing Manufacturers Index. And it's a great precursor of looking 6 months out. And it resets its button every month the data comes out. And it's turned bullish since May. And you've seen energy prices rise. You've seen base metal prices rise. And it basically is saying that the economy is doing strong globally. I think with the dollar softening this year, and China, by the way, correlates with the trend in the U.S. dollar, it also softened in that direction. And you see massive exports and trade taking place, and we have a very robust global economy. And I think that's I remain much more bullish on. GDP is always looking out the rearview mirror. PMI is always looking out 6 months out. So I'd rather rely on that. I think we're going to get some more inflation. That's why they've been raising rates. Oil over $60 a barrel. Domestic is 57. Brent's over 60. It's usually a precursor to some inflation. Still the 2-year government bond is a negative rate. So governments have to stimulate the economy. I don't think you're going to have a negative headwind because this tax break that's taking place is quite phenomenal. There's going to be $1 trillion spent by American corporations in our economy next year. $1 trillion. And that was Goldman Sachs' comments yesterday. So I think these are positive news. The hard part is most of the general media just can't stand Trump. And even business publications, etc., always put on a negative narrative and spin. And to me, why does the market keep trading higher with this negative spin? The quant funds. And quant funds are 60% of all stock trading. They download the data. They read the Fed minutes, 250 pages in 1 minute. And they process it with it's like Google on steroids. And they look for word patterns, and they immediately turn around and are being long the market. And they're long infrastructure stocks, because there's policy changes with the EPA that they can't stifle any type of infrastructure projects. So I remain really constructively bullish, and focus on that, there is lots of opportunity in this great country.
So let's look at gold for a second. The Fed is looking to raise their rates, and we see that every time they look at this or every time they approach this, gold seems to do something. Do you think that with the Fed looking to raise rates, do you think gold is going to be moving up? Because right now, a lot of bankers have come out where it looks like they were actually manipulating the market, and gold has been, suppressed down. Do you think gold is going to make a move up moving forward?
Well, I think that there's no doubt there's always suspicious activity when there's a Chinese holiday. That the gold gets knocked down in the futures market with notional selling. I mean, it's so obvious, and I think it helps governments. If gold takes off with all this money printing, then it exposes them, and so if they can turn around to maintain the price of gold and force it down, just like they've done with interest rates, by the way. I mean, what they've also done with bond issues. I mean, it's just a shocker that you see Switzerland floating a billion-dollar Swiss issue, and the public only buys 200 million. They buy 800 million of it and monetize that, and then they turn around and buy stocks. They own 15% of their own stock market. Now they're buying Apple. They're buying stocks in America. Same thing in Japan. Same thing in South Korea. That these governments, and that's why I mentioned earlier, like the cartel, is that they're printing this money at negative interest rates and they're going buying dividend paying stocks. So I think that that ecosystem is really broken, of how central banks are functioning, and maybe we'll get back to a normalization, in this next foreseeable 3 years. But still I remain really constructively positive about, the changes that we're seeing.
So do you think that we're headed towards a gold standard? Because we see China and Russia, they've been purchasing a lot of gold. We see the petro yuan. Some people say it's going to be backed by gold. Do you think they're preparing to back fiat currency with gold? Is that the approach they're taking?
That's a very good observation. Well, one of the big concerns they have is all money has to run through New York, and then the U.S. can basically confiscate their billions of dollars. Especially when it comes to oil trade, and that China is a massive oil importer. And when they go and buy from the Saudis, it's all has to be converted to dollars and trades are settled in dollars. They want it to be done in renminbi, but the Saudis don't want to take their currency unless it's backed by gold. So they floated a bond issue that's going to be backed by gold as a currency. So this is what they have to do. It goes to show that the communist countries to really have a respectable currency globally, that they have to put gold behind it. And I think that that's something that Putin has recognized, and the same thing with China. And so that makes gold very, very constructive. And you mentioned the question earlier. I don't want to directly answer it for you, but on gold, I am bullish because we've had peak supply. There's no new technology that's going to increase supply. It takes a long time from the date of discovery before you bring a mine on stream today. When I first got in the business, it was 4 years, and now it could be up to 10 years. And so I think that the world continues to grow. When you look at China and India, affectionately known as Chindia, they are 40% of the world's population. They have a rising GDP per capita. And with that, there's always a greater consumption of gold for love. And 60% of the world's gold consumption is for love. And that's predominantly jewelry or gift giving, for birthdays, for weddings, for other type of seasons, religious seasonal holidays.
Now, I wanted to move into cryptocurrencies because all over the corporate media, you hear Bitcoin and, Bitcoin's in a bubble, cryptos are in a bubble. I wanted to get your take. Do you think that Bitcoin or the crypto market, do you think it's in a bubble right now?
No, I don't think it's in a bubble because history has shown that bubbles, in looking at 400 years of data, are usually a runaway debt. And so when we look back at even the futures leverage, the first time of leveraging Bitcoin just took place this week, with the futures market, accepting Bitcoin. That's the first time. It's predominantly been a cash economy. And so it's very hard to get a bubble. The bubble, if we look at the tech bubble in 1999, 2000, many of those stocks, concept stocks, were on margin. They floated these public issues at $70 on margin. They never hit their cash flow revenue numbers. They fell, and there was a big wipeout. You had the 2008 real estate crash because people were only putting down 5%. The brokerage firms were leveraged 33 to 1. So everything was leveraged beyond belief. This cryptocurrency world is predominantly a cash economy.
Now, John McAfee was out there, and he thinks Bitcoin is going to be going to 1 million by 2020. Do you think this is actually possible?
It is possible. You got to remember that it's capped at 21 million coins, and the float rate now is only 10 million coins. And there's a rule of law called Metcalfe's Law. And Metcalfe's Law basically says that as more people use a cable operator, when this model came out with, then the value of per subscriber goes up exponentially. The model proved itself correctly with cell phones, and now it's proving itself with Bitcoin. As more people sign up, and then a staggering number that came out last week was that in 30 years, Schwab has opened 10 million accounts, and in 3 years, Coinbase has opened up 13 million accounts. So that is a huge difference. Now, Schwab has much more money per account than Coinbase, but there's a phenomenon that's taken place that are now not just millennials, but baby boomers who are opening up accounts at Coinbase. And the other thing in my research was that it takes you days to open an account at Schwab. It takes you 5 minutes to open an account at Coinbase. And millennials, just like they have their Tinder for dating, setting up dates, their values and beliefs are different. Everything's got to be immediate and quick. The same thing as opening an account. And I think that you're seeing that record. The other thing is being chairman of the Hive blockchain. Our strategic partner there is Genesis Mining. Genesis Mining is a company out of Germany. They're the largest cryptocurrency miner in the world. It's a cloud-based service. And you have to look at it like being Uber, that people have an idle car, they want to get extra revenue, they become an Uber driver. And the same thing here, you could go around and mine your own coins and use their servers in the Nordic countries, actually all over the world. And you pay a fixed rate. They've been signing up accounts at $50,000 a day to mine these coins, and you have 50,000 people a day going to Coinbase. And so to me, there's something and there's a limited number of Bitcoins, like I mentioned. It means that it's only going to go up geometrically, and that's what Metcalfe's law said. So I think that we have to recognize there's another financial ecosystem that's part of crowdfunding. It's outside of the normal banking, brokering, investment world, the mutual fund ETF world, which is really started by millennials. And it is where it's all electronic. And now you can buy Starbucks with your Bitcoin. And the other really startling data point that woke me up to this industry was having Abigail Johnson, the CEO of Fidelity, with $2.5 trillion in assets, speaking at Consensus in May. And that's like a geek blockchain cryptocurrency conference. She doesn't speak at investment conferences, but she speaks at a cryptocurrency conference. And she said that they believe that blockchain technology is significant to growth and being innovative and competitive, and to drive down their costs, and that all their employees have access to using it, and they can buy food at the cafeteria with their Bitcoins in their wallet. So for me, the fact that she's invested in this in such a great way, they're the second largest discount broker in the world, and that you can open an account at Coinbase and it could show up in your Fidelity account. And then I discovered that USAA, which is just up the street from me in San Antonio, the largest military insurance company, that they invested in Coinbase 2 years ago. And that investment gone from a market cap value of $75 million privately to $1.7 billion in only 2 years. It was a big win for them. But you can also, if you have a USAA investment account, you can show up that here you own the Bitcoins or your Ethereum, within all of your other assets. So the fact that we have these two major financial institutions, accepting and buying into it, there's a sea change taking place, in the capital markets. And I think, like I said earlier, there's only 21 million coins that could ever be issued by Bitcoin, and you have more and more adopters to it. It trades higher.
Now, you mentioned Hive, which is, you're the chairman of Hive Blockchain. I wanted to know, the company mines cryptocurrencies. Which cryptocurrencies do you mine?
We mine Ethereum, Monix, Ethereum Classic. We announced today did a funding. We're going to be expanding into Bitcoin production in Sweden. And so what happened with me was that I was trying to launch a product and an ETF, but there's no way it was going to happen because the regulators are very concerned, rightfully so, about AML, anti-money laundering laws. And it was the fact that people get hacked and they pay in Bitcoin and that dark market would show up in ETF. They didn't want that. So what I loved about the opportunity when it was presented to me was that Hive, it mines virgin coins. They're all new coins. We validate a transaction, and every time we validate a transaction in cyberspace, we get paid more coins. And that to me was a real significant head start for me, that I would never be tainted with that. In fact, those coins are worth more, and we've been offered offtake agreements for 10 to 15% premium to those prices.
And what is Hive trying to accomplish? Are you just mining coins? Is that all you do?
Yes, and hoarding and selling on a quant model. So right now we were hoarding at $300 and for the first 2 months, and all of a sudden it surged from $300 to $600 Ethereum. I mean, it's gone up actually more than many of the other currencies. And Litecoin, we also do Litecoin. So it's and most of these new ICOs, they're called, like IPOs, they're based on the protocol of Ethereum. And Ethereum is known as a smart contract. It has more flexibility. Bitcoin validates a transaction every 10 minutes, where it's every 15 seconds for Ethereum. And I think that what we're going to see, especially for, let's say you're a poor worker, you're a worker working minimum wage here in Texas, and your family's in El Salvador, and you've got to send $100 quickly. Well, you got to get to the Western Union. What are they going to charge? How fast are they going to get there? They can charge from $17 to $25. If it was done with blockchain, it'd be done in 10 minutes, and the cost would be $250. I think that's why the IMF supports blockchain technology and seeing what's taking place with Bitcoin. Now, I've tried to explain to investors, you have to look at Bitcoin as the eye-opener and the awakening for blockchain technology, just the way email opened up the internet. The internet originally was slow. It was predominantly porn. It was dark. And now it's opened up to so many other applications and news and information and streaming. But it all started because of email. And blockchains all started because of Bitcoin.
Now, we see the IRS, the SEC, even the central banks, they're all looking at blockchain technology. You mentioned IMF, Christine Lagarde, who was, talking about Bitcoin, saying, yes, this seems like it's something that should be out there. Now, the question is, are they worried about the crypto market taking over maybe the fiat currency? I mean, why is the IRS, the SEC, why are they all getting involved right now?
Well, they all have different reasons, but the big part is to regulate. So they all have these jobs. I mean, if you look at the IPO market, it's down 75%. There's a shrinking number of brokers. There's a shrinking number of brokerage firms. There's a shrinking number of investment advisors. And there's more indices out there than there are public companies. So you would normally think that they should lay off 75% of the regulators. That's not going to happen. So where are they going to go and regulate? And I do believe the ICO market needs regulation, some basic constructs around it, because they're trying to masquerade as being a coin. And a coin is only if it has a utility, like Bitcoin is utility. You can go buy a computer at Microsoft. You can buy food at Starbucks. You can go to many different service providers and buy a product. In fact, there's an announcement in Dallas, someone bought a home for a couple $1 million worth of Bitcoin. And so it has to have a utility, but a lot of these things really don't have a utility. They're like penny stocks. So I think that that's correct. The IRS wants it as an asset so they can tax. And I think a lot of the newcomers going into Coinbase are tax binding the citizens. They're not out there to evade taxes. Maybe some of the early adopters were, but I think the bulk of people want to be involved because they think it's going to trade higher as an investment.
Now, we see other countries that are looking at the crypto market, like Venezuela. They made an announcement that they're going to be creating their own like petro coin. Russia was saying they were going to do the same. Are all these countries looking to move into the crypto market right now? And will this like make the market gigantic?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason for that is they can control everything. The blockchain technology stops people from counterfeiting. You can have stock trading done 24/7. I forgot to share with you, the New York Stock Exchange also invested in Coinbase when USAA invested. And when I was talking to the New York Stock Exchange, when I was launching my smart beta gold equity ETF called GoAU, they were telling me for the investment because they look upon this blockchain that's going to Uberize them, where you can trade stocks 24/7. So I think, and no failed deliveries. I mean, this is a very significant piece of technology that's going to change and take out a lot of middlemen and drop the transaction costs.
Now, can anyone get into cryptocurrencies? I mean, a lot of people hear about Bitcoin, Ethereum, on the corporate media. You hear bubble, you hear, Bitcoin is a fraud. Jamie Dimon was out there and he got a lot of flack for that. I mean, can anyone get into cryptocurrency? Is it easy to get into?
Yeah, that whole interview was selective. Jamie Dimon also said his daughter is working at Bitcoin. She's making more money than him than JP Morgan stock. And she was teasing him. And so I think all that part of the interview was taken out. And I think what we have to recognize is that at the same time that was said, there was a blockchain cryptocurrency conference at their offices in San Francisco, and it was being tweeted with photographs. They have 2,000, there's right now in the financial sector, there's over 2,700 patents filed for financial transactions using blockchain technology. So there's something big happening in that space, but it's predominantly controlled by Silicon Valley in private transactions. They're not public. And I think that's a real big issue we have, is that the regulatory costs are so expensive to go public. The average transaction used to be $80 million in 1996, and now it's 300 million, from 80 million to 300 million. That's a big lift you would make as an investor. All that stuff's being taken away from investors. And so I think that hopefully we can get a streamlining of regulation so that we can get IPOs and people can have the opportunity to participate in some of this new blockchain technology, these companies, rather than just all being owned by Silicon Valley.
Now, do you think that as the crypto market grows, is there a reason to have the banking system, the central banking system? Because if this is all decentralized and people, can do everything on their own, is there any reason to have the banking system the way it is today?
Well, I think it has to go through a big change, and blockchain is doing it. So people can talk negative about Bitcoin and see all these things. It helps delay the inevitable. Is that this technology is going to be a revolution to all all transactions. I think there's a good clip on YouTube that says 19 different industries will go through big change because of blockchain. 19 industries.
Now, we hear a lot about miners, and Hive mines a lot of coins, and they are saying that it uses up a tremendous amount of energy to mine these coins. What is your take on that scenario where they're saying it uses so much energy to create the coins?
Well, some of it's been exaggerated, but on the other hand, it's true. They use a lot of electricity, so it has to be in cheap jurisdictions. And so you see, originally they went into Eastern Europe and some of these communist countries because there was stranded hydro plants that were built with, there's no grid network. And so they could put a facility right beside a power plant, a hydro plant. What we have done is focus with Genesis in Nordic countries, because you get geothermal, go green energy. You get energy that's less than 4.5 cents a kilowatt hour. The average in the U.S. is 10.5 cents. You have cool weather. You have a safe jurisdiction. And so that's why in Sweden, Norway, Finland, these are all great countries to mining with.
Now, you mentioned Genesis. For those people who don't understand what Genesis is, can you just explain what Genesis is?
Genesis is a cloud service with huge rigs that use the biggest buyer of NVIDIA computer graphic cards. So when you want to go and mine Bitcoin, it's a complete different technology. It's called an ASICs card. It burns out after 2 years. They're always reinventing them, innovating that they're more powerful. If you don't have them, originally you could mine Bitcoin from an old PC, but if you don't have these cards and these chips, then you just can't process. You're too slow. And when it comes to Ethereum, then you need graphic cards, and they're called GPUs. And so with those, the predominantly come up from AMD and NVIDIA. If you take a look at NVIDIA stock, it's a $120 billion market cap, trades at 60 times earnings. Stock's been on a massive tear, and a big part of that, besides graphic cards for kids' games, Game Boy, etc., you're seeing that the big swing buyer has been blockchain validators, which is called mining. And so with that, I think that our goal is to focus on these. It's a land rush. It's like a gold rush in America back in the 1800s, and it really is working to get safe jurisdiction, cool weather, and inexpensive electricity.
Now, what is the biggest or the ultimate advantage of Hive compared to other companies?
Well, there's no pure way to play it. It's the first public company that allows investors to participate with a company that's building out its revenue. When we get it cranked up, we're going to go from $1 million a month to $1 million a week. So we hope by April, based on the performance, that'll be up to $50 million in revenue. We have 7% gross margins. That means you're going to make $35 million. And then after G&A of CapEx would be $10 million. We're left now with $25 million of free cash flow. Well, 40 times that number at our growth rate is $1 billion. So the stock's not undervalued.
So you said this is a public company. What is the ticker for this?
HIV Toronto, or the Venture Exchange, they call it VSX, or it's TSX.V. Is the symbol in Canada.
And where do you see the crypto market going in the future? I mean, what's your outlook here?
Well, it's very positive. I think that you're going to see many of these coins used for utilities, especially Ethereum. Ethereum is a smart contract. It has more flexibility, and all these new ICOs are based on the protocol of Ethereum. You can use Ethereum to buy food. You can buy houses in Europe. You can buy Tesla cars. So it's easy to convert into dollars to buy that car. But more important for the insurance business, the financial sector, it's going to be the best technology for moving an insurance contract or a stock trade.
Frank, I really appreciate you coming on the X22 Report Spotlight. I really do. Thank you very much. Once again, how can people see your work, and how can people see or get in touch with Hive?
Well, then go to hiveblockchain.com, HIVE blockchain.com, listed in Canada. And they can, I have my own blog. It's, usfunds.com, Frank Talk, and I have about 40,000 readers in 180 countries.
Frank, once again, thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and happy investing and a prosperous new year.
You too.